Practical faith listeners, how are you doing? I know you guys are having a blessed, amazing day because again, we are children of God. Guys, James 1, there's so much in James. You know what? If you ever want something, if you ever want a book that is just filled with practical advice, you know what? How to live your faith out practically. James is the book. And I was like, okay, where do I go? And I wasn't even reading long. And all of a sudden, James 1, verse 5 comes in. If any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God, who generously gives to all without finding fault, and it will be given to you. Now notice that the first thing about wisdom, where does wisdom start? It starts at God. A lot of times we try and apply worldly wisdom. We try and, do things out of ourselves and the way that we were taught from small. It's not always necessarily wrong, but a lot of times we don't see God first. And this is where the problem comes in. Because it says that if we lack wisdom, how many times in how many situations have we been in where we lack wisdom? We're like, I don't know what to do. How are we going to get out of this? Like, you know what? Everything seems so dark. And we're trying to find light. But where is the light? How many times do we struggle and we try all the things we've either known or we've heard from friends, do this, do that, but not everyone's life is the same, because you know what my one friend does isn't necessarily what will get me out of the same situation. Most likely, yes, but not all the time. And the word says, ask God. Why aren't we starting with any time? You know what? I heard a testimony once, actually from a pastor, Pastor Bill, and it was just so brilliant. For some reason, his testimony was they were struggling with the church's combi's wheel, the van's wheel, and they couldn't, for some reason, I don't know, I can't remember the full testimony, but the whole time they tried everything. And it was him and another person, and they tried everything, but they couldn't get it right. For some reason, this thing just wasn't, I can't remember the full details, but they couldn't get it right. And then all of a sudden, something just said, but pray. And then he said, okay, God help me. And he had his prayer. All of a sudden, they went back and they got it fixed. And it was something simple. It was actually something stupid that they had to do. But it's just to remind us that in everything, let's ask God. Let's come to him, because wisdom starts by God. You know, that only makes sense because God is the creator of the heavens and earth. He made everything. Why aren't we coming to him for answers? You know, we only want to come to God when we're in problems, in situations. Let's ask him for anything. Even sometimes the most simple, mundane things. Let's come to him. You see, that's how we build a relationship up with the Lord. And this is one thing that people, I think a lot of us probably were not taught, or otherwise we kind of forget it and put it at the back and saying, oh yeah, but you know what, I can do this, especially when it comes to cooking. Well, I'm not the best cook in the world, but I can do the basics. But why don't I come to God and say, Lord, I want to try something different. I want to go a bit more deep in, help me. And you know what? It will, at that moment, he'll either send you a recipe or you can phone someone. I mean, I phoned my mother once and asked her how to cook. I couldn't remember what it was to cook, but at that moment I was struggling and I wanted to do something very specific. And all of a sudden, the Holy Spirit said, but phone your mother. I phoned my mother and it came out perfectly. Not as nice as hers, but you know what? That's one of the things that we come into is, let's ask God. We should ask God for everything, especially when it comes to wisdom. In your darkest places, you know what? When you're struggling with something, let's say, Lord, okay, what is the situation out? We might not always like the answer because there might be something we have to do, or maybe God says, but let's wait a bit. You know what? The time's not now, but you will get through it. But we should always come to God. And this is just what I want to impress today, because it says, and it will be given to you. Not always necessarily what you want, because in our minds we've always got something that we want, and this is how we want it to be done, and this is the way it should be done. But God will give us the wisdom. You know why? Because it is practical, it is divine, and it is Christ-like. These are the three things when we ask God for wisdom. It has three distinct characters. Practical, it's divine, and it is Christ-like, because then we come in to God. The Bible identifies Christ as the wisdom of God. And this is what we do when we come and say, Lord, help me. So guys, every time we ask for wisdom, we are asking to be like Christ, because we are asking God. And that's exactly what Jesus Christ done. He always came to God. He always stood in prayer. He always came to the Lord and he said, Lord, what now? How now? Should I do it? Gethsemane. You know what? Go read it up. It is so brilliant, guys. Remember, today, if you lack wisdom, Start by asking God and you'll be surprised at how He answers you. Blessings, guys.